There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of death in The Rookie. Even some of the most notorious and loved characters have died in some of the most gruesome ways. But what about the times that characters almost died, but survived despite the odds? Today, we're gonna go over every time that the Rookie characters almost died. Let's start with one of the most well-known instances of a main character almost dying, which is in Season 2, Episode 11, Day of Death. I think we all know what I'm talking about, but for those who don't know or need a refresher, this is the episode after Lucy was kidnapped by Caleb Wright. The episode started with nobody knowing where Lucy was, and she had been missing for upwards of 13 hours by this point. And given the 24-hour window that it takes for one of his victims to die, it means that the LAPD was running out of time quickly. Lucy is not a quitter though, and she definitely wasn't one during this episode. When she was tied on the chair and was close to getting put in that barrel inside the house, she broke the chair and started to make a run for it. Unfortunately, she failed, which is when Caleb decided to upgrade his crazy plan. By burying her in the barrel underground, Lucy had even less oxygen to work with while waiting for the LAPD to save her. She sat there quietly, singing to herself to keep her sane while the oxygen level got lower and lower. It seems like it was over for her, until Tim saw the ring that she dropped outside of where she was buried, and she was saved. This definitely is one of, if not the most famous example of a character almost dying in the show. And it did an amazing job at telling the audience that they weren't going to hold back with what they had planned, even if it was going to emotionally torture us. This next example of a main character almost dying happened over 3 seasons later and is personally my favorite on the list. Season 5, Episode 22, Under Siege, is the episode in which Selena Juarez and Aaron Thorson were brutally attacked by the crew of masked men in the alley. While Selena was badly injured during the situation, she wasn't the one on death's doorstep. It was Aaron. He was wheeled into the hospital with Bailey, to the horror of Lopez and Wesley. Nolan, with the help of Selena, tries to decipher the cryptic message that one of the masked men told her while she was taken out. And while they're confused at first, they get to work finding out what it means. Meanwhile, the rest of the LAPD made it their highest priority to catch the guys who put Aaron in this condition. Slowly but surely, the pieces come together for both the message as well as who is behind the attempted killing. During all of this, the operations are not going well. The doctors are panicking, and his vitals are dropping. That night, the killers come back, but for Nolan and Bailey this time, as well as Nyla and James right after. Luckily, they were unsuccessful on both fronts, and this is what led to finding where the mask came from. A one-act play that sold their assets over the years until they landed in the hands of Roy Greco, as well as his crew of past convicts. The LAPD take out the crew of grunts, but they missed the real villain behind it all, who is revealed at the end of the episode. But what's also revealed at the end is Aaron being wheeled into emergency surgery, and this was the cliffhanger that the season ended on. Luckily, he heals up by the middle of the first episode of season 6, but when season 5 ended, nobody knew if Aaron was going to be okay. For months, the audience was scared that Aaron was actually going to die, and this is what makes this instance one of my favorites. Next up, we have to go to the beginning of season 5, all the way back in episode 4, The Choice. And this instance is none other than Bailey Noon being trapped in the chamber of death created by Rosalind Dyer. This episode, like the last one, jumps right into the thick of it, as not even 3 minutes into this episode, Bailey falls into the chamber and is stuck without any help until the LAPD arrive. At first, Nolan and everyone else were just gonna bust through the grate and get her out, but then she shows them that there are actually a whole bunch of other booby traps laid around the chamber. That's when the water begins to start rising, and Nolan gets the call from Rosalind, where he is sent on a wild goose chase to get to her. Meanwhile, as he has to ditch his things and drive away, the water level just continues to rise. The LAPD realizes that unless someone got her out of there, she was going to be electrocuted by the grate. Nolan finally gets to Rosalind, and a live feed is waiting there for him. Rosalind gives Nolan an option: either take the gun she hands him and shoot her in order to save Bailey, or he does nothing and she will slowly die in front of his eyes. The water level is at dangerous levels by this point, and they need to get her out fast. The LAPD find the generator, and the plan is set. And as Tim says,
she's cold, she's exhausted, everything has to go perfectly in order for us to save her.
Nolan decides not to shoot her and trust his gut, and the LAPD cut the generator. Bailey is then forced to go under the water while the booby traps are going off on the surface. If she goes up to the surface, she dies, but if she stays underwater too long, she also dies. Eventually, she goes limp. Luckily, they cut the grate just in time, and Selena jumps in to go get her. Some CPR later, and Bailey is resuscitated. She was likely seconds away from death in there, and without everybody's help, she would have been as good as dead. Moving on to our next episode, we have to go back to Season 3, Episode 5, Lockdown. And for this one, we're going to talk about the time that Jackson West almost died while on patrol with Doug Stanton. I know that Jackson ends up dying later in the series, but this is an example of when he almost died much sooner. Unlike the other episodes from earlier in this list, this episode doesn't actually center around the near-death experience. Instead, it's at the end of the episode, so we're just going to focus on that. In the final quarter of the episode, Doug and Jackson are responding to a call that comes from Manor Apartments, one of the most dangerous spots in all of Los Angeles. And when they get there, Jackson runs into the suspects they were after. They slowly were approaching him until one of them jumps from behind his back and takes Jackson down. They proceeded to beat him, kick him, and make him bleed until he wasn't moving. And while all of this was happening, Doug was just watching it happen. He didn't call for backup. He didn't go in to save his partner. No, he just sat and watched, and then slowly backed up so that he didn't have to keep witnessing it. I plan on making a whole video about the Doug Stanton plotline in the future, so make sure to leave a like if you want me to make it happen. Anyways, Jackson is wheeled away in critical condition, and while he ends up being okay in the hospital by the end of the episode, it was clear that just a little longer of a beating could have easily killed him, and that's why this is on the list. With this next one, we have to time travel all the way back to Season 1 with the pilot episode of the show. We're going to talk about the first ever near-death experience that was shown on The Rookie, and that was with Tim Bradford during the shooting in the alley. Once again, this episode doesn't just focus on Tim's near-death experience, considering it is the pilot. So we're going to just jump forward to when it actually happened. About 32 minutes into the episode, the suspect matching the bolo that the LAPD got earlier has been spotted, and Tim and Lucy respond to it. They decide to call him back up, and that's when Nolan, Bishop, Lopez, and Jackson are starting to head that way. But they don't get there until after the shootout begins. And shortly after said shootout started, Tim was shot in the chest right through the window. This forces Lucy to give up on shooting them to go and save Tim. Tim is bleeding out at this point and is in critical condition, but he still tells Lucy to keep shooting back instead of trying to patch him up. That's when everyone else shows up, and Nolan and Bishop are able to safely apprehend Selby. We don't see Tim again until the next episode since he needed to heal, but it's insane that in the pilot episode, the show already made the audience think that one of the officers was going to die. Also, unlike the rest of these instances though, this actually is not the only near-death experience that Tim faced though, and it's actually technically not even the only one in the first season. Let's jump ahead to Season 1, Episode 20, Freefall, as this involves the virus situation that the LAPD had to contain, especially Tim and Lucy, since Tim was locked inside the room with the man who was dying of the disease. It was unknown if he was going to make it before the experimental vaccine was going to get to him, since he didn't have any symptoms and it really hadn't been that long since the man that was infected had died. Luckily, the vaccine did make it in time, and he was able to get it administered. But the virus isn't actually the only near-death experience that he faced within this situation. It was the vaccine itself as well, as at the very end of this episode, Tim collapses on the ground with everyone around him. Going into the first episode of Season 2, he's having a severe reaction to the vaccine that puts him into anaphylactic shock, and it looked like it was going to get worse, until the shooting in the front of the hospital started and distracted everybody. It was unknown how Tim was doing until he busted out of the ambulance and is shown to be just fine. Now let's move on to a more recent example that happened in the middle of Season 7, with Season 7 Episodes 8 and 9, Wildfire and The Kiss. I lump both episodes in here as the actual near-death experience happened at the end of Wildfire, and then it continues into The Kiss. The victim of this near-death experience was James Murray. At the end of Wildfire, while taking care of some boxes at the end of the evacuation, a drive-by shooter comes by and shoots Kylie and James. And when Selena finds them, they are both in severely critical condition. When Nyla is told about the shooting, she is left speechless. Then Tim and Lucy see James get rolled into the hospital. He is sent straight to operation, very similar to Aaron Thorson's case. Due to Nolan knowing about the situation involving James and Kylie's kiss, however, Nyla is immediately made a suspect, and the majority of the episode is spent trying to clear her name. But while doing so, they find a lot of things, including a picture with Leonard Kelsey, an anti-police extremist. This ended up causing issues, as now the LAPD knows that James knowingly invited a prominent fugitive into his home underneath Nyla's nose. Luckily, they find out who the assailant was, and Nolan, Tim, and Lucy are able to apprehend apprehend him. Also, luckily, James is able to get out of the operation while being relatively okay. Obviously, he's still in crappy condition and continued to be for the next few episodes, but given that he was shot multiple times in the chest and was rushed into the ER Aaron Thorson style, it was a miracle that he survived. Next up, I'm going to talk about the season 3 finale and first episode of season 4, since I feel like I have to talk about this instance, even if the character wasn't physically about to die. We're talking about Angela Lopez getting smuggled to Guatemala by La Fiera to be used as a surrogate to her own child, while La Fiera would then take Angela's child and raise the child as her own, all while killing Angela after she gives birth. She has no way out of this situation on her own, and when she tries to give La Fiera some pushback, she drops the killer line.
But if you resist, Dr. Morales will put you into a twilight sleep and you will spend the next 3 months as an incubator and your life ends.
She knew that she was good as dead unless something happened. And that's when Wesley and the LAPD headed to Guatemala to help rescue her from La Fiera's grasp. It was a close call though, as in order to be saved, Angela had to go through forced labor to get everyone out of the house, as well as was getting continuously chased by La Fiera and her men. Without Wesley or the LAPD showing up to be able to get her out of there, she would have 100% died, and we would have never seen Angela Lopez again. Those are all of the notable times where characters almost died in The Rookie. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.